Can you bow your heads, please? Dear Lord, there are so many things we take for granted. Let us not ignore them today. Help us, gracious God, remember that life is a gift, that our health is a blessing, that today is a new day filled with awesome potential, and that we have the capacity to bring something wholly new and unique and good into the world. Help us to remember, dear Lord, to be kind, patient, and considerate, not only to those we work with and interact with each day, but to our family, to the people who love us most, and even to those we do not know well or casually meet. For all are our neighbors. Teach us to see all the beauty that we so often ignore and to listen to the silent longing of our own souls. Help us, O Lord, to remember you not just on Sunday, but every day, and to be worthy instruments of your will. Please bless this food we have received to the nourishment of our bodies and us to thy service. Amen.
Thank you, Becky. That was beautiful, as usual. I want y'all to know I was looking over her shoulder during that. I didn't have my eyes closed. She's right. She hand-wrote that prayer with no edits. That was very nice and from the heart. Thank you. Visiting Rotarians and guests, we have Dave Venatra. He's our new member. Dave?
Thank you. We have no guests today, but we do have, I believe, at least one visitor. If you please introduce her.
Sure. This is my wife, Deanna. My wife, Deanna. The CEO of Grace Outdoor.
Welcome.
And mother of Grace.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Jimmy Derrick got caught in the crossfire with the train, but he's here. So Jimmy Derrick's going to give health and happiness. Thank you, Jimmy, for being here.
You would think that with all the city employees sitting at home, that somebody would figure out about that damn train. I mean, they got plenty of time to do that. They ought to figure it out. I got some good news. Very happy. I had a birthday, on July the 17th, which was very nice. South Carolina reports in today's newspaper, I'm not even getting the newspaper anymore, but South Carolina reports one of the lowest daily virus totals for July, so I thought that was good. Okay. All right, yes. I used to own my own company, Century 21 Bobcats Realty, and it's funny how real estate has changed, just like Rotary has changed because of this particular thing. But at Century 21 Bobcats Realty, we used to have a sales meeting every Wednesday in a month. I mean, every Wednesday we had a sales meeting. One of our distinguished speakers, Bob Crutchfield, used to come at least twice a year and speak to our group. But basically what it meant to me is I had to prepare for a sales meeting every week. And not only did I have to prepare for a sales meeting, but I also had to prepare for the critique that I was going to get from my partner, who would tell me that this meeting wasn't any good if he didn't think it was any good, which was okay. So, I got into buying a lot of books and that kind of stuff, and one of the books that I bought was called The Edge, and if you'd like to know about this book, you're welcome to come up to me after the meeting, and I'll have my mask on. But I found a couple of quotes, and this is a pretty old book, and it's kind of interesting some of the folks that they quoted in this as a motivational book. My father taught me that the only way you can make good at anything is to practice and then practice some more. It's easy to practice something you're already good at, and that's what most people do. What's tough is to go out and work hard on things you don't do very well. If you have trouble going to your right after ground balls, have your friends hit the balls to your right. And that quote was from Pete Rose. know, the only way you're going to get anywhere in life is to work hard at it. Whether you're a musician, a writer, an athlete, or a businessman, there's no getting around it. If you do, you'll win. If you don't, you won't. That's a quote from Bruce Jenner. Funny how things change. Okay, let me find this one here where... I want to change things. I'm going to do my best to speak up about the things I think are wrong, whether it's the university, in football, or in the country. The only way you can bring about a change is to do something about it. That was a quote from Joe Paterno. Nobody thought that was funny. That's okay. I'm not getting paid that much to be up here. I thought this was a good one. Fame is a vapor. Popularity is an accident. Money takes wings. Those who cheer you today may curse you tomorrow. The only thing that endures is character. That's a quote from O.J. Simpson. So anyway, I thought that was kind of cute. There were some things in here that were good, I thought. Class never runs scared. It is sure-footed and confident in the knowledge that you can meet life head-on and handle whatever comes along. Jacob had it, Esau didn't. Symbolically, we can look to Jacob's wrestling match with the angel. Those who have class have wrestled with their own personal angel and won a victory that marks them thereafter. Class never makes excuses. It takes its lumps and learns from past mistakes. Class is considerate of others. It knows that good manners are nothing more than a series of petty sacrifices. Class bespeaks an aristocracy that has nothing to do with ancestors or money. The most affluent blue blood can be totally without class, while the descendant of a Welsh miner may ooze class from every pore. Class never tries to build itself up by tearing others down. Class is already up and need not strive to look better by making others look worse. Class can walk with kings and keep its virtue and talk with crowds and keep the common touch. Everyone is comfortable with a person who has class because he is comfortable with himself. If you have class, you don't need much of anything else. If you don't have it, no matter what else you have, it doesn't make much difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jimmy. Well done. Appreciate that. You can hold your questions about the train till our nice city employee is here next week as our speaker. We'd love for you to be here and ask that question. Don't forget the card buckets that are on the table.
Card message.
I don't have the card message with me. I'm sorry. I missed it. Would you like to say something, please, Frank?
The card message today is going to be a short video, but I preface that by first saying, wow. Okay, better. How about over here?
I'm trying to turn it on. I think it is.
Okay. All right. Go outside. Why don't I just give this thing?
Why don't you cut that and kill it?
Okay. Wow.
You know what? Sometimes you need to be able to go back to something old-fashioned. I do believe there was a day when they didn't have audio speakers and whatnot. The card message today involves a video, but the preface to it is to say, people who are caregivers, if they're reading much at all, get a lot of advice about how to make caregiving easier. There are two things that come up repeatedly. One is you need to accept what your loved one can't do. There's no way you're going to change that. Accept what they cannot do and enjoy and take pleasure in what they are able to do. And by the way, there are plenty of things they are really able to do. The second one that they hear is you have to learn to live in their world. This video is a conversation, a 1-minute conversation, just a segment of this conversation, of a daughter who is the caregiver to a mother with dementia. And it's a beautiful illustration of how this mother and this daughter, who is an attorney who gave up her attorney's work to care for her mother with dementia, how she adheres to those two pieces of advice. Cynthia, you're on. Well, it was a nice try. I would try to act it out, but that would defeat the entire message. Just know that those are two things, and this is a beautiful illustration of that. The daughter is so understanding, and she's talking with her mother who doesn't know that this is her daughter, and her daughter explains that her mother has dementia, and the mother says, "Oh, that's so sad. How tragic that she could have that." But she never realizes that this is her daughter who is talking about her. And what's so good about it is what the caregiver does. She just handles it as beautifully and naturally and works with her mother and accepts who she is right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. I'm so sorry that we couldn't get that to work. But we're going to try to get him the link in the next e-newsletter, and then y'all can watch it. It's only 2 minutes, but it's very powerful and telling story about the caregiver, the daughter, whose mother doesn't even know that it's her daughter, and she's talking about her. Thank you, Frank. Don't forget, the most important part here is, of course, the education, but we're trying to contribute to the CART fund. So loose change is welcome, but so are checks made out to the CART fund, and they're tax deductible. I want to encourage everybody to wear your mask. Again, it is the law. We're in Columbia and Richland County. Of course, our mayor will be here next year, so definitely bring a mask. And next Monday, when the mayor will be here on August 3rd, we will have a Discover Rotary meeting. So please bring prospects and guests to come and hear the mayor. Will be back in our normal room. I appreciate y'all accommodating Seawells today by cramming into here. We've got a good turnout. I hope you all have completed your survey. If you have not, you may get another questionnaire, another email sent to you asking you to fill out the survey. Literally, it'll take less than 60 seconds. Please let us know what you'd like to be involved in this year with the Columbia Rotary Club. Pay your invoices, of course. Now we're going to have a special presentation with past President Hal Stevenson to do new member initiations.
Thank you, Mason. Just curious, how many, raise your hand, remember Lester Bates doing this? So really a lot of people remember. Well, I would have a hard time today if I mispronounced any of these names, especially my daughter Gracie. So Gracie, if you would come up. And Pat Cannon also. The reason this is a bit different is that I sponsored both of them. So Mason is going to, no, I'm sorry, down here. Sorry, in front, for everybody to see. So Mason's going to pin your pin on you, but I'm going to introduce you both. Pat, I'm going to start with you, and excuse me as I read a little bit about you. Pat is a graduate of Georgetown University and had a Bachelor of Science in Nursing. She also has a Master's of Science in Education. She and her husband, Pete Cannon. Some of you, anybody remember Pete Cannon in here? He passed away a few years ago. If you go down to the swing suite downtown and go in that parking garage, her husband Pete name is on that because he was very strategic in bringing City Center Partnership to Columbia. Matt, are you here today? So the City Center Partnership was really Pete's baby and did it. And so they worked together doing many things, the biggest of which is an organization which she still works with called His International. Now takes the form of global leadership. You know, I mean, if you don't know, we have a lot of students at USC. I'm not sure how many are there during this pandemic, but older folks going after advanced degrees who will go back to their countries. And I met a guy from Iraq one time with Pat who may go back and be the president of Iraq one day. That's his ambition, and very, very smart guy. And we have, in fact, talked about having a satellite club over there. You know, we have Rotaract for students in college, kind of undergrad, but these students that Pat works with a good bit are older, maybe 30 or so, and so we may do that, so stay tuned in that. Told Pat she wanted us to do that, she needed to come join the Rotary Club, so here she is. She's been involved in many things, mostly that are in helps ministry. She's big on sharing the gospel, but also working with homeless and other ministries like that. She enjoys teaching how to stay healthy. She's taking that nursing degree and still using it. She likes to Zumba. So any of you Zumba fans out there, you've got somebody that you can do that with. She walks 5 miles a day mostly. She has 3 sons and 10 grandchildren. Sports are a big part of their lives, and she's got a grandson, I think. Pat plays pitches for the Bulldogs. All right, you hear that, Bob? Okay. Expect to hear a report on you in scouting report one of these days soon. And so I want you to welcome Pat. Glad to have you here, and you're going to be a great asset to this organization because this is about service above self, and you've proven that really your whole life. So thank you, Pat. And so I've introduced already my daughter Gracie. I am also going to read a little bit from her application because I find it, you know, I don't always know everything. I usually think I do. But she's a graduate of AC Flora High School. She went to the University of South Carolina studying in the hospitality HRTM area, but also minoring in Spanish. I can't say that I've heard her say a lot of Spanish lately, so I don't know how that good it is, but you know, practice makes perfect. She has worked really around the family business for a number of years, and of course, hanging out with me, she's done a good many things. She helped at the Bocce Bash last year. I've had her out ringing the bell, as has my wife, a couple of times. It's a little harder for me to pull her sleeve and get her to do that. She was volunteering on the Small Business Council at the Chamber in their Northeast Connection group, and also was a United Way board member for a while, the core board of directors. She's been very active over in Lexington and Irmo and the chambers there. Her personal interests are concerts and music, and her favorite of all time, and just if you want to get her talking, ask her about Billy Joel. She's taken off and traveled to Miami in a road trip to get down there on New Year's Eve to see him. So
You used your Spanish there?
she would have had an opportunity to do that. Maybe it was. She loves to travel. She loves art and culture, technology, local politics, networking and connecting, and just hanging out with friends and kids. So she is going to be a part of this Rotary Club. After 28 years of being in this myself, I'm very proud to have her be a part of it, and welcome Gracie to Columbia Rotary Club. Now, if you'll turn and face me, I picked that up from Michael Kahn, who many of you know who usually does this, is going to move to the mountains. But in Michael's words, I won't give them justice, but he would tell you that you're joining over 1.2 million Rotarians around the world. There's no greater service organization in the world than Rotary. In the local community, we do what we can locally, like packing boxes, ringing the bell, supporting student scholarships, But we also, through the Rotary Foundation, support things going on all over the world. Water projects for places that are really with bad water. We work to eradicate polio, very close as they say. And so there are a lot of good things. I encourage you to read more deeply about it, continue to be involved, and welcome to the Rotary Club. Okay, so I'm doing double duty today in various ways. You know, if y'all bear with me for a minute, I may not even go to it, Matt. I mean, I read a bit about his biography, so rather than take up much of his time, I'd like him to have plenty of time, and he'll take questions at the end. And of course, the subject that comes up a lot these days around issues having to do with our African American brothers and sisters and Martin Luther King and others. There's controversy, but this is not political. There's no political parts of it. Of course, we try to keep politics out of everything we do in here anyway, but all of your questions will be welcome. But Matt grew up in New York City, the son of a single mother who, through a tragic incident, was disabled and had to live most of her life on public assistance. But he was able to gain a scholarship to Dartmouth University. And Matt, I'm going to let you talk a little bit more about your education, but I know you went on and got your doctorate, and I just can't remember what all those things were. But I met Matt about 20 years ago at a conference, and we just sat at a table together. Deanna was with me, and we just started talking about the basic human rights and what that means. Just that all people have value, and of course you folks know pretty well where that conviction comes from me, but I think it is a universal challenge sometimes for people to look at other people and give them the value and worth and respect that they need. And so what Matt's going to talk about today is very near and dear to my heart, and I hope you'll give him a warm Rotary greeting, and well, Matt, we welcome you to Rotary.
Yeah, the short version of my credentials is that I have more degrees than a thermometer and I'm less useful. That's what my wife says. She's a doctor, and she also reminds me where doctors put thermometers, but I won't share that story. So I think it's fair to say that our country's going through a time of trial and testing. We've been through these times of trial and testing before. Two of the tests that we have before us now are fairly obvious. One is COVID, and the other is rising levels of violence. I think we're going to overcome the COVID challenge. I'm a little more worried actually about the violence, because it may prove to be more enduring unless we administer an educational vaccine that can teach Americans a better way. And you can't do that quickly, but you do have to do it. The good news for us as a country is that we have been shown a better way. And I believe that that is best shown in the teachings of Dr. King. I'll give you a little bit of background on my journey that brought me to this place. It's not a path that I would have chosen, but I'm grateful that the Lord brought me here. So I was raised in Spanish Harlem in a precinct with the highest rate of violent crime in the borough of Manhattan. It was a very bad neighborhood. Lots of crime all around me growing up. My mom was assaulted coming home from work one night, so she ended up disabled. We ended up on welfare. My dad, who had left, remarried an African-American woman who became my stepmom, so I grew up with a half-brother from a mixed-race marriage and watched him struggle with a lot of issues. He's doing well now, but there were times when it didn't look like he was going to make it. I got a scholarship to Dartmouth, which was my ticket out, which was about like like roughly akin to going to another planet when you're from the neighborhood where I grew up, but it was a good thing. And then I went on to get my law degree from the University of Pennsylvania and my PhD from Brandeis. The position I hold now is Chair of Law and Human Rights at a graduate school of international affairs in Washington, D.C. called the Institute of World Politics. The Institute of World Politics is well known inside the Beltway. It's not well known outside the Beltway, somewhat by design, because we teach mid-career intel officers. So we're really a school for the intel community. My specialty is counterterrorism, only it's not the hard power dimension of counterterrorism. It's what they call soft power. I basically have pioneered some ways to use digital and social media to spread ideas to young people around the world who are at risk for being recruited by extremist ideologies of various descriptions, and have built an audience of over 40 million for that digital outreach, working with a team of former Disney people who've helped us to use entertainment in very creative ways online. And that work has won us the endorsement of 2 former chairmen of the Joint Chiefs, the former commander of NATO, the former director of the FBI, and a bunch of comparable officials from the United Kingdom. So that's my day job. That's what I do for a living. But my work internationally, I think, has given me perspective on the U.S. that is helpful for thinking about what we're going through here now. You know, around the world is still amazed that the American South did not become Rwanda. Because according to the laws of politics, the American South should have turned into Rwanda, an endless cycle of revenge and violence and grievance. And the greatest example of a social change movement in modern history that had enduring success was the movement launched by Dr. King and a few others like Andrew Young that helped to steer this country away from that Rwanda outcome that we should have had in the South. And the heart and soul of it was a very radical, very unusual commitment to nonviolent social change, which ultimately came from Dr. King's faith. It came from his understanding of spiritual principles that allowed him to stand up against, you know, not just occasional examples of police brutality, but systematic state-sponsored police brutality across the entire South, and to do so without using violence. I was privileged, as I started to work on a series of curricula that teach Dr. King's principles to young people, to spend a lot of time with Andrew Young, who I interviewed extensively for our course. And I'll just share with you a very short 1-minute clip from those interviews, but I think it says a lot about the ethos of Dr. King's movement. So could we run that clip, please? Hopefully it works.
We were able to desegregate the South that had been segregated through slavery for almost 400 years. And we didn't kill anybody. And a few of us were killed. But we didn't destroy any property. We made sure that nonviolence was the way that we could help America grow in grace and in the purity of its own vision.
There's a lot more that I could share with you from those interviews. I don't want to presume upon your time, but that's my single favorite quote from Andrew Young, who is a very humble and understated guy when you consider what he's achieved, but he's full of wisdom. I would say to you that we have something in this country that many European nations do not have. We have a kind of moral bank account that was given to us in the teachings of Dr. King and in the work of Dr. King and his followers and leaders like Andrew Young. And now is the time to draw upon that moral bank account, because we need a place to turn to as a nation for the principles that are the antidote to division, polarization, and violence, and that offer hope for us to build a society that is just and that is that honors the dignity of all people. When I started down this path working on curricula for high school and elementary school students that teach the principles of Dr. King, I brought my interest in digital media to the equation, and that has informed some important dimensions of these curricula. Those of you who are familiar with Dr. King's teachings know that he really emphasized the parable.
No, the feedback is done. I did that.
Thanks. Good job. Thumbs up for you. Hey, wow, I don't have that Wizard of Oz thing going on. Anyway, he emphasized the parable of the Good Samaritan. Now, I'm really fascinated by this parable for many reasons, but the most important feature of this parable is that Jesus was asked, how do you show the love and mercy of God? What do you do? So he tells a story about the guy who was attacked and robbed, like my own mom, left for dead by the side of the road. And, along come, and he's a Jewish guy who got robbed. Along come a couple of Jewish religious leaders, and for various reasons, they declined to help him. Then along comes a Samaritan, and the Samaritans were despised by the Jews. Basically, the Jews were very racist towards the Samaritans. They looked down on them, they saw them as inferior, they mistreated them. But it's the Samaritan who shows the compassion and mercy of God, maybe because he himself had suffered a lot, who knows, but he was the one that God used to save this guy's life. And Dr. King constantly emphasized this parable of love and mercy extending across boundaries of culture and race, all of these divisions that get set up by human beings that stop the love, the mercy, the compassion of God. And I was reading a little bit about Rotary. You guys understand this. You're an international organization. You're always involved, I think, in extending love and compassion and mercy across international boundaries. That's your strength. I think that's one of the greatest things about your movement and why it's endured. And I think, to some extent, you're doing God's work when you do that. And you get blessed as a result. Well, I started thinking about how digital media has given individuals historically unprecedented power that was not available in Dr. King's day, both for good and for evil. It can be used for good and for evil, but it's a powerful tool. And I came up with this term, digital Samaritans. So a digital Samaritan is someone who uses the power of digital media to reach out across boundaries of geography, race, and culture to try to advocate for the rights of other human beings, possibly even on the other side of the world, and started to compile stories of digital Samaritans from around the world, including young people who've raised awareness and had a tremendous impact for human rights, and put them into this course. And in the course, we challenge the young students not just to study Dr. King as dead history, but to be torchbearers and ambassadors for his principles in this world today through the power of digital media. The goal is to have 10,000 Dr. Kings, black, brown, white, and yellow, carrying the torch of his principles into the future. That would be a good thing for our nation and for the world. In order to give legs to this, I created a committee at Howard University, which is sort of the Harvard of the HBCU world. Some people would argue with that, but that's what they say at Howard anyway. And so it's African American educators, educational experts who helped us to shape this curriculum. I got 2 urban school principals from Nashville to help develop both the high school and elementary school version respectively. And now we chose to pilot this thing in Tennessee, and there's a reason. The reason is that's where Dr. King was martyred, if you recall. And I believe that there's power in reversing the designs of darkness, kind of like the resurrection was the reversal of the crucifixion. I thought, let's start in Tennessee to reteach Dr. King's principles to a digital generation. And this was all before COVID and all the recent turmoil. I got Governor Bill and Maria Lee, Maria was a former educator, to embrace the curriculum. And we've piloted it in suburban and urban school districts, and it's done quite well. It's done well offline, but it does especially well online because it's filled with digital resources. And we've also been taking it to private schools in Tennessee. And then right around the time COVID hit, we started making progress in a number of other states, Texas, Alaska, Arkansas, lining up leaders from the African American community in some of those states, associated with the MLK Commission in each of those states, the Black History Commission. And so we're starting a national renewal and celebration of the legacy of Dr. King. The goal is simple. We want to shine a light that can help to heal a divided nation. I don't want to curse the darkness. I want to shine a light. And so if you see any value in the idea that we're trying to advance, if you think it's a good idea, we'd love to have you help in any way you would like. Hal has been gracious to open doors here for us in South Carolina. In most states, we try to form a committee of people who represent the community and want to see this taught in the schools. And so if you're interested, we'd love to have your help and involvement. And of course, I'd like to take your questions on the vision and where we're going next.
Anybody have any questions for Matt? I'm sure he'd love to answer some of those. Matt, we do have a couple of questions. Thank you.
What inroads have you made in South Carolina?
Say again?
What inroads have you made in South Carolina?
Well, today's my first day. So we're meeting with contacts in the governor's office today, and also some state legislators, and the superintendent of one of your schools. Yeah, all thanks to Hal.
Greg Witherspoon is going to meet with us this afternoon.
So pray for us.
I was wondering, how do you, or what thoughts do you have around preparing these children when they learn some new ideas and concepts that might challenge their parents' viewpoints, and as far as bringing that back home? Because I know that's something that even my own family sometimes, talking to my elderly family members, and the new concepts and ideas that challenge what they were, even taught in textbooks as facts and history. So sort of how do you bridge that gap for what the children are learning and then what they might be bringing home to their parents that would challenge their views?
Well, I'm all for. I'm all for. The question was, young people today are hearing a version of history and a narrative that is different from what their parents may have heard in school. They're coming home with, I'm sure those of you who are parents are probably running into this. They're coming home with questions, and to some extent, I think it's a challenge for parents how to answer those questions because they weren't raised to contend with those same set of issues, yeah? That's a paraphrase, but I would say that that's a good thing. Thank God that they're asking you if you're a parent as opposed to their friends, right? It's an opportunity. I don't think we should be afraid of that. The one thing I do believe is that there are certain principles that are timeless. They don't change, right? There are not many of them, but the ones that are timeless are really important. And if you get them wrong, you make a big mistake, okay? So the one that we emphasize, and that I think we have to emphasize, is that social change advances best through nonviolence rather than violence. Do you know, by the way, in the decades since Dr. King sacrificed his life for that idea, there's been an ocean of social science research confirming that nonviolent social change movements are more effective than violent social change movements. Most recently, a major study by Harvard really conclusively proved that Dr. King was right. And that's one of the timeless principles. We're going to have to apply to new challenges, new questions, and new issues at our age.
I have a couple of questions. First question would be, are y'all emphasizing anything on single-parent households, for example, single-mother households? Because since Dr. King, his dream and his movement, the single-parent household, especially with single mothers, has skyrocketed since the 60s. And then also, one of my biggest fears right now is there is racism in our country, but this country is not racist. And my fear with all of these rights and everything going on that are being instigated by another organization and not BLM, that the media is portraying that it is the minorities that are portraying this, the riots and the violence and everything, when it's another group that's instigating a lot of this. And a lot of the people that I'm talking to are blaming minorities and fearful, and people that I know are not racist are pretty scared right now.
The answer to the first question is no. In our curricula, we really don't get into the demographic issues, which are important, but the course is offered to public schools as offering the teachings of Dr. King to young people and putting a digital spin, if you will, on Dr. King's message. So we're not trying to address all of society's ills in the course. You know, there's a phenomenon that I've seen in Europe that I'm seeing start to happen here, okay? And it's a phenomenon that I call the polarization of the extremes. And I'll give you an example from history. Have you ever noticed how one form of evil that in the human realm is considered to be at one end of the political spectrum often seems to feed in a weird way off another form of evil that in the human spectrum is at the opposite end of the polarity, if you will. So for example, give you an example from history. Let's look at Germany in the 30s. This is considered one of the most cultured nations in Europe. It's the nation of Bach, Goethe, Beethoven, and Martin Luther. Yeah? And you have over here the communists who are violent, committed to violence, and over here you have the fascists who are committed to violence. Yeah? And as the communists commit one atrocity, the fascists get more recruits. And as the fascists commit one atrocity, the communists get more recruits. And it's really weird, isn't it, how they sort of feed off each other. And then you got all these people in the center, probably like a lot of Americans today, who are saying, what's happening to Germany? All I see on the news is the communists and the fascists beating each other up in the streets, right? And I would offer you this analogy for thinking about this. I call it the puppet show of darkness. You know, when you're sitting in an audience at a puppet show, you see the two puppets on the stage, and maybe it's the prince fighting the dragon, right? And it looks like they're at war, yeah? But if you go behind the stage, it's the same guy with his hands in both puppets doing the show, right? It's just two different flavors of evil. And in a weird way, they feed off each other. So the key to survival in a democratic society is to find a way to hold the center. For all these people of goodwill who aren't out rioting in the streets, they're trying to live their lives, raise their kids, pay their taxes, be good citizens, do acts of mercy and charity in their community, they gotta find a vehicle to hold the center. In many European countries, they don't have one. So you have extreme political movements on the right that are xenophobic and racist, and then you have extreme political movements over here, and they're fighting in the streets, and it looks a lot like Germany in the 30s. This is the time for people of goodwill to come together across boundaries of race and culture and hold the center, and the best place I know to go is the teachings of Dr. King.
I'm 60 years old, and I've seen a lot of transitions thought in my own life, people around me, my social background kind of presented the world to me in a certain way. And I've come to really appreciate Martin Luther King and his relevance. And I think he's the perfect solution to the chaos that we've got. My question to you is, how relevant is Martin Luther King with the people who are involved in the chaos currently? Because they probably are too young to even remember.
One of our coalition leaders in Arkansas is the organizer of the largest MLK parade in the nation. They had 20,000 people last year in 6-degree below weather in Denver. And he said to me, he said, you know, a lot of people come to this parade, so at one level it's a big success. He said, but I'm not sure how many of them really know the teachings of Dr. King or his principles. So he became a supporter of our curricula because he wants young people to be taught. The principles that Dr. King died for are timeless. The world changes a lot, but some things never change, and nonviolence as an answer to society's problems is a timeless, eternal principle that we have to hang on to and reteach, and we have to find new ways to teach it. I mean, think about this course, in a sense, as an effort to put a new wineskin the precious treasure of Dr. King's legacy for a digital generation.
Got a lot of questions, okay.
We speak of Dr. Luther King, Martin Luther King, and his religious background. How does that going to play into public schools where religion is not, it's pretty much banned unless you're doing it off by yourself?
You know, so far that hasn't come up. I think maybe it's just the greatness of the man, the fact
I
that
hope not. I think you're right.
it's the greatness of the man, and the fact that he sacrificed his life, and also, in fairness, and again, to his credit, Dr. King spoke what you might call a common grace rhetoric. He did not speak in a subculture religious language. His feet were rooted in the gospel, but his words were for everyone, everywhere.
I'd like to share something with you. I was born and raised in Memphis, and I happened to be working in April of 1968 when Martin Luther King was assassinated in Memphis. And that was a week of hell. I'll tell you that was the worst week I've ever spent in my life. But the thing that I don't see today in the black race, I don't see Martin Luther King today. A leader in the black people. Unless you know more.
Well, my view would be there are lots of them. They may not get airtime in the media. The media tends to love people who have certain messages. You know, the media is about eyeballs and revenue from eyeballs, and controversy and conflict is how you get eyeballs. If anybody's ever done interviews with the media, it's amazing how they will relentlessly bait you to try to fit into a certain drama that they want to, cheap theater that they want to have. So moderate voices, reasonable voices, compassionate voices in every community get less airtime, unfortunately, but they're there. And you know what? I'm telling you, I have seen in the faces of my students the Dr. Kings of the next generation. They're out there. They're out there. And our job is to give them the principles that can allow them to fulfill that destiny. Don't give up on the next generation. They just need, they're like plants, you know, they're going to respond to the water and the food that they get in school. And if they get good nourishment, they will grow up to fulfill that destiny.
I would just add to that, in the wake of what's been going on in the recent past couple of months, I've been spending quite a bit of time listening to a lot of black intellectuals, people you're likely familiar with, people such as Thomas Sowell, Walter Williams, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And these guys are preaching a message that's far more conservative than much of anything you'd ever hear from a white politician, but they don't get the airtime at all. And you also don't hear them, you don't hear their names dropped much from the Republican right either. So it's I don't know why these guys just don't get the time of day, because they've got a brilliant message.
This is one of the big struggles. I guess it's always been this way, but we have to persist and break through, because there are a lot of people, just like the people in this room, waiting to hear voices that are offering hope rather than pouring gas on the flames.
Thank you for being here today. You had mentioned that there was an online database of resources that you have. What is that website?
Well, thank you for asking. So the curriculum the curricula, plural, high school and elementary, that we've developed are being deployed right now through the online portal of Ingram Content Group, which is the Tennessee Textbook Depository. They do all the textbooks for Tennessee. We may be on more than one platform in the near future as we go to other states, but right now it's on the Ingram platform. And there's other material that I can get you if you give me your email. I'm happy to send you. Anybody here in this room who wants to learn more about what we're doing, just give me or Hal your info, and we'll plug you in and let you know what's going on and what we're going to be doing next in South Carolina.
We'll try to get a link to that as well in our newsletters.
Here's a little thank you from the Columbia Rotary Club. Appreciate you being here. I'll wipe that down.
Oh, we got it.
All right.
that was fantastic, and I'm glad you're going to spend some time with our superintendent and member of this club, by the way, Dr. Craig Witherspoon. The fact that you're getting some time with him today, it means a lot, because he's extremely busy right now with the changing of school and what they're trying to do. President-elect Catherine Davis was not able to be at the meeting today. We want to thank her and Hal for bringing in a wonderful speaker today. She's leading and presiding over a national Zoom meeting, so she couldn't attend. She apologized for that. But she's happy to announce that our mayor and honorary member of this club, Steve Benjamin, will be here next week to talk to us about a lot of what we talked about today and the other issues that are going on in Columbia, maybe even trains, who knows. But he's got a lot to talk about. We'll give him a generous amount of time. Please bring prospects, bring guests, and bring your questions. Yes, sir. Hal?
One thing just hit me, whether this speaker or we had President Artisan the other day, and I've shared, we're now getting all this on Facebook Live. We've always recorded, and it's been on our website, but it's not so easy to share. But really, any message that you like from this or any of the programs we're doing, you can send them out on your friend list really easy to say, hey, this is something you might find interesting. So don't overlook that. I mean, you kind of go, I haven't really done it much, and it hit me this weekend that I can do that. So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there.
Right. Y'all are not the only ones watching this presentation today. We're actually live and going live stream right now. So if you're not able to make it next week or to any meeting, and your guests and potential members of this club are not able to be at that meeting or any meeting, including here in today's message, they can rewatch it or they can watch it live as it goes on. Thank you for reminding us about that, Hal. Thank you, Cynthia Giles, for bringing that new technology to us. And so we're broadcast around the world. If anybody wants to log on, they can do that. A new for the Columbia Rotary Club. And we'll take us out with song, Rusty, if you'll.